Welcome back to the Herbalist Hour. Today I'm incredibly honored and excited to have on Sajah Popham for the first time. Welcome to the show, Sajah.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Mason. It's hard to believe it's taken us this long to get on here and chat.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and the flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
That's right. I was trying to recall when the last time I saw you was. It was definitely in the Pacific Northwest. It was definitely at one of those herbal gatherings up there. Definitely miss being in the Pacific Northwest. And so you're still in Washington State, I take it, right?
Yeah. We live up in the northwest part of the Pacific Northwest, pretty close to the border of Canada. Yeah.
Wow. Incredible. Very beautiful. Also, I heard you're a new dad, so congrats on that. How's parenthood going?
Thanks, man. Yeah, we had our first one about 4 years ago, and another little one came about a
Oh,
year ago. So we got two boys, and
wow.
it's awesome, man. I love it. I mean, to be perfectly honest, it has been like one of the most profound, beautiful, transformational experiences of my life. It's really changed me as a person and changed my whole outlook on things. And yeah, it's been awesome, really great. And as parenthood goes, very challenging at the same time for sure.
If it's one thing I've noticed about parenting is all of the cliches are true, and I'm sure you're finding that out. Oh, wow. Well,
Terrible twos thing, right? Everybody's all terrible twos, terrible twos. And
yeah.
I was joking around. I say, all the people that talk about terrible twos haven't had a 3-year-old yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess your first kiddo must have snuck past me because I didn't realize you had two now. So that's extra
Yeah.
amazing. Awesome. Well, congrats to you and Whitney. Yeah, as I was mentioning earlier, you and I have kicked it at a lot of different herbal conferences, and I don't think I've ever actually got the story behind Sajah Popham's herbal evolution, if you will. How did you get into herbalism in the first place?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an interesting story. I mean, I guess to me it's somewhat interesting. Maybe to others it's not. But, I
Sure.
mean, ever since I was a little kid, I always wanted to be a doctor. I remember one of the first things I ever drew was like a little person with the little like mirror on their forehead and a little cross on the thing. It was like, when I grow up, I want to be a doctor. And so I really took that trajectory throughout my adolescence. The context of what that was going to look like changed. There were periods of time where I wanted to go into cardiology. There were times I wanted to go into neurosurgery. There were times I was really interested in, going in more into psychotherapy. And there was really just a disillusion that I had, I would say, as a young man, where when I stepped back and looked at the allopathic model and honestly what it had done to my family.
Mm.
I grew up with a lot of health stuff in my family, and a lot of it was iatrogenic, caused by doctors. And as I developed more of kinship with nature, a connection to nature, and just myself adopting more of I suppose more of a naturally oriented lifestyle. Herbal medicine just fit into that.
Mm.
And for me, herbal medicine was not just a pathway towards healing. For me, it was really deep connection to self-discovery and finding myself in the natural world. I always felt that as I more deeply connected to the nature outside of me, that I had a deeper connection to my own nature inside of me. And so herbal medicine really went hand in hand with, I guess, for lack of a better term, more of an earth-based
Mm.
spirituality, and not in any kind of context like, I wouldn't necessarily consider myself a pagan or something like that, but it was just in nature I found myself. And so that led to me, exploring herbal medicine as a pathway to being of service to people and to the community and to the world. And as I wanted to practice, I guess you can't say practice medicine, but to me that's really what it is. But practice the healing arts.
Sure.
And That ultimately led me to do Bastyr University's Herbal Sciences course. So I have a bachelor's of science in herbal sciences from Bastyr. And then from there, just really studying with some of them, I would say some of the more well-known herbalists in North America to scale that knowledge and understanding I gathered from Bastyr into more clinical application. And as it goes, when you get into herbal medicine, it's kind of this rabbit hole of all different types of healing traditions and cultures of medicine and nature. And that really led me in some interesting directions that I never really foresaw for myself. One of which was uh, the alchemical tradition of Europe and how that approach to medicine, to healing, to herbal pharmacy, and to really a whole cosmological perspective of life and nature, what it means to be a human, what it means, what a plant is, what it means to heal, and ultimately how our healing journey is an intricately interwoven part of our own conscious evolution, the evolution of our mind, of our spirit, and growing as a human being. And so it's led me down some really interesting other avenues that have really become cornerstones of my practice and approach to herbal medicine.
Yeah, when I first met you, you were you at your booth. You had the brand Organic Unity, which I want to say you actually changed the brand name. So I'd love to hear if you could share with the audience your new brand name or new-ish. But that was all Spagyric formulas. So as you were talking, I'm like, oh, I could visualize you getting into the alchemy tradition and all of that as well.
Yeah, yep. Used to be Organic Unity. My under the urgings of my wife, we changed the name a couple years ago to Natura Sophia Spagyrics, which was a term used in alchemical tradition that really speaks to the intelligence of nature, the wisdom of nature. And so we changed the name to Natura Sophia Spagyrics. And the Spagyric pharmacy has been a major part of my work with herbal medicine, because I realized that if I want to heal the whole person, for me, being holistic is central to my approach. Well, what does that mean? We use that, you hear that word all the time, holistic.
Yeah.
Well, what does it mean when people say that word? And this is a theme that I say a lot, I do a lot, where I'm like, well, what does that mean? Like, when you say that word, what does that mean? Because I think we need to be clear in our terminology and our definitions. We can have understanding amongst one another. And so to me, I wanted to heal the whole person. And that's not just putting a Band-Aid on a symptom. That's not even just taking a symptom away. That's seeing that what goes on within our body is not just interconnected with, or it is a synergy with our emotional being, with our psychological being, and I like to argue with our spiritual being as well. They're not separate. And that's ultimately why I called it Organic Unity, because to me, the human being is an organic unity unto themselves as a microcosm, but also we're a part of this greater organic unity of the natural world, which composes the terrestrial world, but also the celestial. And so for me, the Spagyric pharmacy was central because I wanted to heal the whole person. Well, if I want to heal the whole person, I better use the whole plant and not just, when I say whole plant, I'm not referring to, the root, the leaf, the flower, the seed, the fruit. I'm referring more to, in the process of medicine making, we oftentimes discard the plant. And that always really bothered me. And through the traditional art and science of Spagyrics, which is plant-based alchemy, we can really utilize the entirety of the plant. What in alchemy they would say the sulfur, the mercury, and the salt of the plant, or the soul, spirit, and body of the plant, to heal the sulfur, mercury, salt within the person. The Spagyrics have been huge for me.
Just a quick break from the show to let you know about our HerbRally Schoolhouse, our private member area where, HerbRally already comes out with a ton of free content, but if you'd like to get even more exclusive content, check out herbally.com/schoolhouse. You could use coupon code SCHOOLHOUSE30 at checkout to get your first 30 days for free and see inside the member area. There's a ton of exclusive classes specifically for our members. There's herbal community discounts. There's a private member area where you could interact with the other members as well. Another perk is you get the ability to hang out with us live on the Herbalist Hour podcast. You could ask questions, etc. So that's a super fun perk, which we're really excited about. Huge shout out and thank you to all of our HerbRally Schoolhouse members. It's really one of the best ways you could support our work here at HerbRally. So thank you so much. And now back to the show. Just an aside, are you teaching Spagyrics as well through your School of Evolutionary Herbalism? Do you ever do that?
I do, yeah. So we have a program called Alchemical Herbalism, which is really built on it. That course is really cool, and I'm actually in the process of refilming the entire course.
Nice.
Well, not right now, but currently this year I've been refilming that entire course, and it's really cool because it's taking the fundamental principles of alchemy and showing how they are really very similar to the fundamental principles of holistic herbal medicine, both Western holistic herbal medicine, as well as many Eastern systems of holistic herbal medicine. In my approach, most notably Ayurveda, primarily because I'm not as well trained in traditional Chinese medicine. So yeah, that course is really neat. And it does go into spagyric pharmacy, but really the bulk of the course is really showing the fundamental tenets of specifically Paracelsian-based alchemical philosophy and how that coupled with the practice of medical astrology and how that can be stitched together, woven into the fabric of our fundamental approach to holistic clinical herbalism.
Awesome. Well, you can stay up to date with Sajah and I's work on the newsletter. We'll leave links to the School of Evolutionary Herbalism's newsletter in the podcast show notes, YouTube description, etc. So speaking of, definitions and using words and defining what we're talking about here, you were talking about holistic. I know another piece of the puzzle for your herbal practice is this concept called vitalism. I'm just wondering if you could, first of all, maybe define what vitalism is. Maybe that's a long answer in of itself, but I would love to know maybe who also, to put more on you, Sajah, who was the original person that kind of brought vitalism to your herbal practice as well?
Yeah, great question. And this is an important question because when we're looking at the principles of vitalist herbalism, it's important to understand this approach because it's in stark juxtaposition to allopathic herbalism. And oftentimes those two, where you don't hear those two words together, right? People are like, oh, but I thought herbalism was innately holistic, not allopathic. And it's actually not true. And it's actually a majority of people out there, more lay folk that use herbs, tend to use it very allopathically, which basically is a use this herb for that symptom kind of mindset. And it can work in some instances, but very often it actually doesn't work. It's not the model through which herbal medicine has been practiced cross-culturally for millennia. And so the principle of vitalism, and I think, vitalism is a very big term, and it has very specific applications in the context of herbal medicine, but it does have other contexts in which it resides, oftentimes from philosophical implications and things like that. But for our purposes in terms of herbal medicine, vitalism is the principle that there is a vital force, there is a vital function, what some might think of as a life force or a spirit of life, an animating factor. There's many synonyms for this term cross-culturally, right? The traditional Chinese medicine commonly uses the word qi to indicate this life force. But vitalism postulates that there is a vital force, an animating factor that flows through all things. all three kingdoms of life, right? Animal, vegetable, mineral, even, and it imbues that life with meaning, with purpose, with sentience, consciousness, and form, in a specific form. And our role as a vitalist herbalist is to really honor and recognize the intelligence within a plant and the intelligence at play within the human organism. And it is our goal as vitalists to follow that vital force, to aid in its most fullest expression of health and vitality rather than suppressing it. And so central to that would be the concept of a symptom. So when we often think, symptoms, let's face it, are uncomfortable. We don't like having symptoms. They don't make us feel very good. But rather than, in an allopathic model, the symptom is the enemy. The symptom must be banished at all costs. And this oftentimes leads to an approach that is innately suppressive of the body's innate intelligence. The vitalist approach sees that the symptom is a language. The symptom is an intelligent communication from the system to inform us that something is off, that something is wrong, that something needs to be addressed. And a really good example of this is the fever. So when we, come into contact with some sort of pernicious influence, a pathogen, it invades our body, our immune system responds. It says, whoa, something's in here that's not supposed to be in here. We need to initiate a response. And it's very sophisticated in how our body does this. Even just looking at the fever, where their signaling happens to the hypothalamus that closes the pores, the exterior vents of the body, ramps up the internal temperature to just the right degree to generally denature the structure of that pathogen, whether it be viral or bacterial or whatever. Now, fevers are uncomfortable, right, as a symptom. And, in an allopathic approach, typically the symptom is suppressed. The fever is suppressed through commonly a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug like an aspirin. The unfortunate thing about that is that as that fever is suppressed, that pathogen is reproducing. This is why they say, if you suppress a fever, you can turn what might be a 1 or 2 day fever into a 5 or 6 day fever, because you're suppressing the intelligent response of the body to that pathogen. The vitalist approaches it very differently. We see that fever is a language. That fever is an intelligent response of the body to maintain self-regulation, essentially, to maintain its homeostasis. I don't really like that word homeostasis, because stasis implies kind of something static. And if there's anything we know, it's not static, it's constantly in flux. So I kind of like the term homeodynamics because it's a little more dynamic. But anyways, the body's trying to maintain that. And so as herbalists, we typically use a class of remedy referred to as diaphoretics. And the diaphoretic herbs essentially help the fever in doing its job. Some of them are very warming and they drive blood up to the surface. They are opening up the pores of the skin to open up to help the fever to do its job. And so I love using fever as an example because it really juxtaposes an allopathic approach to a vitalist approach to the healing process. And that really, vitalism really is the domain of effective use of herbal medicine, because, contrary to popular belief, we can suppress symptoms with herbs. Maybe not as well as we can with drugs, but we can suppress symptoms with herbs. And generally, we don't want to do that. And the other aspect I'll mention about vitalism from an approach of healing that I think is very, very important for the modern herbalist is that herbs aren't the only thing that we use as herbalists. Like a true holistic herbalist, someone that's really holistic, that's really looking at the whole person. Like no one's depressed because they have a St. John's wort deficiency, right? Right. With people that, there's no such thing as an herb deficiency, but you bet there's such thing as nutrient deficiency. You bet there's something as sleep deficit. You bet there's something, right? That there's a host of lifestyle factors that directly contribute to people's relative state of health or lack of health. And we can't just use herbs to address the modern client. It just doesn't work, especially this modern world. I mean, we've created such a complicated world. People are complicated and people have complicated pathologies. People have complicated conditions, and oftentimes their treatment can be complicated. And if we strictly, solely, only rely on herbal medicine, we oftentimes won't fully hit the mark. We won't get the complete, full transformation of body, mind, spirit that we can achieve if we work with things like someone's diet, their lifestyle, their nutrition, their thoughts, their emotions, right? These are this is the whole person. So yeah, those are some of my initial thoughts on the concept of vitalism. I'm a really big proponent of this approach to herbal medicine. And to follow up with the other part of your question, I was first introduced to the concept of vitalism through Matthew Wood. He has a book called Vitalism. It's one of his older books. And he goes through, it's more of a kind of a history book of different vitalist approaches to herbal medicine, which, homeopathy, for example, is an innately vitalist tradition. Physiomedicalism is very vitalist. Eclecticism, these are North American traditions of herbal medicine. Of course, traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda are very vitalist in their approach. They don't use that terminology, but they are. Alchemical medicine, Paracelsian medicine is very vitalist in its approach as well. And so when you claim a vitalist approach to herbal medicine, to me, you really anchor yourself in tradition. You really anchor yourself in an approach that has been proven to be effective. I mean, these people, we talk about people of the physiomedicalist or eclectic tradition in North America. These were busy practitioners. I mean, these were doctors. These were medical level doctors using herbs in their clinical practice every day, and they were informed by a vitalist orientation. And so I think it's important to anchor ourselves in that, to root ourselves in that approach. And I also feel like it's very important for me to tip my hat to Paul Bergner, who's been an incredibly influential herbalist for me over the decades. Paul talks about vitalism extensively, and I have really learned a lot from him as well. Those are really the two guys that really introduced me to this concept and helped it become a formative aspect of how I approach herbal medicine.
Thank you for sharing all that. I'm just nodding my head the whole time. And yes, shout out to Matthew Wood, Paul Bergner, etc. And, I think I might be a vitalist herbalist by accident because I'm working on this concept called frugal nutrition, which is basically, how to eat healthy on a budget. There's this misconception that it has to be expensive. I believe that it doesn't. But anyways, as I'm fleshing a lot of these topics out, I'm thinking of sleep hygiene, which is free. I'm thinking of body weight exercise, which is free. I'm thinking of, quality of oxygen and just spring water and being out in nature, and all this stuff is free. And I'm literally none of this actually has to even do with herbs or nutrition. So, yeah, I'm just like I said, nodding my head the whole time you're speaking, Sajah.
Well, it's fantastic because you're simplifying it.
Yeah.
And I think any way that we can take this world and try to make, in terms of our everyday life and how we live, how can we just simplify things? Yeah. How can we reduce the overwhelm? How can we make things not so darn complicated? I just feel like the more that can happen, I think the more sane we will all feel.
Absolutely. Well, You had a podcast episode on your fantastic podcast. Go and hit pause right now and go subscribe to the Plant Path if you're not already. And you were talking about Vitalist self-care, which I'm really big into self-care as well. I've got a whole like checklist for my self-care that I try to do every day. And you also recently did a reel, I want to say on Facebook or Instagram or both, on burnout for the herbalist. And I'm just thinking, with those two ideas juxtaposed together, obviously self-care is going to help you with burnout. And I was just thinking maybe we could go over some of the Cliff's notes for Vitalist self-care. Would that be okay with you, Sajah?
Yeah, totally.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
So if you want me to prompt you, I'm down to do that, unless you have it memorized from a year ago. I don't know.
Go for it.
So basically you have 5 bullet points. And the first one, which I thought was probably the most difficult, and you even said, admittedly, you you bring this in your life off and on, probably due to the difficulty of it, but that is get up with the sun.
Yeah. Yeah. Get up with the sun. I think this is one of the most important things, in my opinion. It is challenging for many, especially in the summer months. But this is, people talk about living in harmony with nature. Yeah. You want to live in harmony with nature, get up with the sun. It is the number one thing that you can do to align yourself with the entire rhythm and pattern of nature. There's a reason they say that time before the sun comes up is like the best time for spiritual practice, prayer, meditation. There's a reason for that. And for me, getting up with the sun in it, I'm pretty good with it these days. I've struggled with it in the past, but I'm pretty good with it these days. Even when, right now, the sun comes up around 5:30, but a month or two ago, I had to get up 4:30 o'clock in the morning. I think it is about aligning ourselves with nature's rhythm, and it does something to you. And I'm sure there's whatever, I don't know the science behind it, but when you get into a habit of it, you notice things start to change. I suffer from a lot of chronic pain. I've got low back injury, and I find that when I get up with the sun, I don't have as much musculoskeletal pain. And I'm not the only, but I've heard a lot of people say that incorporate this practice. There's something about when you're laying in bed and that sun comes up, the life force is moving. Everything is moving. Your blood wants to be moving. Everything, your whole system wants to move, but you're still laying there and it's not moving. It gets stuck. It gets stagnant. Everything kind of collects. And then you wake up and you're groggy. Your mind's all cloudy and groggy and you're all stiff and achy. Man, if you just get up right before the sun comes up, it changes a lot. So yeah, that's a big one for me.
How have you been at that recently? Have you been practicing that?
Yeah, very, very nice. Good. It helps when you have small children that demand your attention. Wake up very early, so that definitely helps. But yeah, man, that's always my routine. That's the first thing I wake up. I wake up, I go downstairs. I make myself my cup of coffee and I go outside. It's the first thing that I do. I go outside and I just sit and I face the east. And I just watch that first light come, and that's when I, make my prayer and the way I kind of orient myself spiritually. That's a really, really critical part about my self-care and my practice. It's also a time for, me to shake off the groggy, get my head together, and get ready for the day.
Well, I have to imagine, jumping ahead a little bit, the last one that you have listed is go to bed with the sun. I have to imagine that getting up with the sun is just going to start helping you develop the habit of going to bed at an earlier hour as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. When you're waking up at 4:30 in the morning in the summertime, and the sun goes down at 10 o'clock at night here in the Northwest, when we're around the solstice, yeah. It's still light at 10 o'clock. That makes for a very long day. And so it can lead to some tired days, but your body adjusts to it. And I think for me that there's a grander scale of this of like, we live on a farm. We're growing a lot of our own food. We're raising animals. I'm running 2 businesses. I'm a really busy person. person, and the summers go, 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 go. We're really, really busy and we're working really hard. But then we have the winter time, and that's when I sleep, right? In wintertime, I'm going to bed. I mean, it gets dark sometimes at 4 or 5 o'clock. It gets light at 7 o'clock, and that's my time to rest and rejuvenate myself. And so I think this is one of the ways that we can more deeply align ourselves with nature. It just takes getting used to. It is an adjustment physiologically, psychologically, emotionally. Let's face it. I'll be honest. Yeah, I've had some real tired, grumpy days trying to do this.
Yeah.
But I find the more that I practice it, first of all, the easier it becomes. And B, I find that there's a lot of benefits to it in the way that my body is, my appetite's different, right? That if I sleep in, I have no appetite in the morning. If I get up early, appetite starts rolling, and I got that good kind of rhythm with my food and my eating. I just think there's a lot of factors to it that are quite profound, that are sometimes difficult to explain. You just kind of got to experience it and be disciplined with it. And I think that's the hardest part for most people is self-discipline, which I think is something most people struggle with, because once we become adults, we don't have parents to help discipline us. We have to discipline ourselves, which I think is that's be a disciple unto yourself. Discipline. It's a very challenging thing, but I think it constitutes the development of a degree of self-mastery and maturity, and I think ultimately is what cultivates wisdom in the long term.
I've definitely got out of the habit of going to bed at a reasonable hour. I usually stay up until like 11:30, and that by that, if I want a full like 8-9 hours, I'm waking up at like 8-ish or whatever. But I promise I'm going to start incorporating this, sometime. Maybe I'll start in the wintertime when it's maybe a little easier.
There you go.
I did want to say, I thought it was really interesting. My daughter just started going to public school again for the first time in a few years, and they don't start their school day, at least at this school, until 9:30 a.m. and they get out at like 4. And that was way different than what it was like when I was in school. And I was thinking maybe they did that because of technology and kids just staying up later, and they're so stimulated at night that they're just so groggy and tired in the morning. I thought, wow, they're basing it around poor sleep hygiene habits.
Yeah, the sleep hygiene thing is huge, man. Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, if you can't expect to fall asleep if you've been staring at a screen for the hour or two before you go to bed. It's really challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just based on time, why don't we just maybe do one more, if that sounds good to you, and then the listeners could tune into the Plant Path podcast, where you go over a few more self-care through the Vitalist lens bullet points, and then you also go into the topic of like seasonality, which I really enjoyed that section of the episode as well. But what would you like to talk about? We've got eating according to activity levels, get outside and walk in nature, or rest when you're tired and take breaks. Any of those strike your fancy right now?
Well, I mean, I think the dietary piece is really important. Eat when you're hungry. Don't eat when you're hungry. It's and I think one of the big things too is breakfast. The modern diet is actually very reversed of traditional diet in terms of not what you eat. I mean, definitely what you eat for sure, but like when you eat and how much you eat when you eat. We live in a culture where a lot of people wake up and their breakfast is a coffee and a donut, or a coffee and a muffin, or just a coffee or whatever. And then they have like a moderately sized lunch if they eat lunch, and then a big dinner. And this is something we've learned as we are homesteaders. We're out working hard on the land. You eat a solid breakfast and you eat a solid lunch. And then we're so tired by the end of the day that dinner is like kind of just like more of a moderately sized meal. And I think this is a really important vitalist concept too, is when is your digestion at its peak functionality? It's in mid-morning, right? It's in the morning time. By the time the evening rolls around, your digestive system is significantly less active. And of course, there's lots of hormonal regulation with this, with things like ghrelin and leptin, and that ties into insulin regulation and our whole metabolism. And I think it's very much reversed for a lot of people these days. And so one way I say to adopt more of a vitalist kind of lifestyle is eat a big breakfast, eat a solid breakfast, eat a protein dense breakfast, no carb. Don't be starting your morning off with a bunch of sugary cereal and juice and a frappuccino. It's like, no wonder so many people are anxious all day.
Yeah.
You start your day off with something like that, and no wonder you're having a panic attack by lunchtime and can't keep it together. Is that your body literally doesn't have the baseline nutrition that it needs to function properly. So I'm a big advocate of the protein dense breakfast. And, as someone that used to be pretty much an oatmeal kind of guy in the morning and switching to a very protein dense breakfast, it really changed my energy levels. It changed my mood. It changed my mental capacity. With the work I do, my mind has to be sharp. I got to keep my brain health is really important to me. And that simple change was a big game changer for sure.
Just going back to Paul Bergner, I want to say he's a big advocate for protein-rich breakfast as well. Does that sound right?
Oh, big time. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I have a hard time even getting as much as Paul recommends, which is, I think, 35 grams of protein at breakfast. I mean, that's something like, 6 eggs? I mean, I can't eat 6 eggs at breakfast. I do my best to get a lot of protein at breakfast, but I don't know if it's hard to eat that much sometimes. Yeah.
So out there on the homestead, you have chickens? You got some chicken eggs too?
Yeah, we raised chickens, both meat chickens. Whitney and I butchered it was 92 chickens a couple weeks ago. So we got a freezer full of all of our chicken meat. We raised sheep too. So all of our meat we eat off the land. We don't purchase meat. We don't purchase eggs. Pretty much from like May, June up through November, we really don't have to go to the grocery store at all.
Wow.
We pretty much have been trying to get ourselves as self-sufficient as possible. That's really kind of my wife's job. She is really working the homestead, and we're incorporating a lot of. We've been learning a lot. It's been this whole other area of life that we've been learning a lot about in terms of self-sufficiency and learning a lot of traditional skills. Home butchery and managing animal management and pasture rotation and all kinds of really interesting stuff.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of work, but I want to say, Sajah, you're living the life. Would younger Sajah, like looking forward, like looking where you're at now, do you think younger Sajah would be proud of where you've made it, and like you visualize this, and here you are now living this homesteading life? You've got beautiful family and a nice business, a couple businesses. Did you see this coming, or how's that hitting you?
Yeah. Oh, I saw it coming. I mean, it was all very intentional. I mean,
totally.
I've always been a very ambitious, motivated, driven person. I always have this ability to see this is the direction that I want to go. This is the thing that I'm going to strive towards. And here's the step-by-step thing that I need to do to get there. And so it's all been very intentional. Did I think it was possible? At times, absolutely not, especially when it comes to finding a home. I mean, it's very hard to find land and home these days. It's very hard to just find a place to be. And so, there's a lot of times where doubt creeped in, and I wasn't quite sure if I was going to be able to attain my dreams and the things that I wanted for my own life. But for me, it just comes down to hard work. It comes down to not just hard work, but hard work coming from a place of wanting to do good in the world, and really wanting to help people. And that's something that I personally am really proud of, that, we've managed to build a life for ourselves based off of helping people and serving people and doing what I think is something really good for the world and of service. And I think that's the only way I would have it. That's the only way I've ever wanted it to be, ever since I was a little kid and drew that picture and said, I want to be a doctor, Yeah.
I want to say the first time I heard the quote, Blue Vervain is for the person that has to-do lists and like check marks and all that. The to-do list for to-do list for to-do lists. And I want to say that was you at the Brighton Bush Herbal Conference. Would you say you're a Blue Vervain type of guy?
Oh, 100%, right? I mean, that's why I love blue vervain, right? Because it's totally like the picture of that herb is me, right? I mean, I'm a very type A guy. I'm very driven. I'm a list maker. I literally have lists of lists that I need to, right? I mean, it's, my wife thinks it's a little overboard. I mean, I got my little reminders app on the phone. That's, you got a million things going on. I got to get it out of my head or I'm not going to sleep at night. So, the blue vervain is fantastic. I mean, it's such a good, bitter, acrid, relaxant, nerve. It's just so good. And I really love it for those type A types that can't, especially the types that can't separate work and home, which is, that has been a challenge for me. And maybe you struggle with it too. I know a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with it that work from home, right? How do you turn the work mode off and family mode on? And I will say I'm significantly better now than I used to be because, back when I was in my 20s, a short work day for me was 12 hours and a short work week was 6 days, it was 7-day work weeks, 14-hour days for a really long time. Now that I'm glad I did that because now that I've got a family, I'm able to hone it back a little bit and be a little more family man. So
yeah. Yeah, we were just at the Great Lakes Herb Fair, and Rosalie de la Forêt gave a fantastic keynote address, and in it she referenced Blue Vervain and talking about, she loves her checklist as well, and what she was like, I don't want to take Blue Vervain because I'm afraid of the side effects, like it's going to tell her to get rid of the to-do list or whatever, but really she said what she learned from the plant when she sat with it was, it's not that Blue Vervain wants you to not have checklists. What it wants is for you to just be present in the moment, have your to-do list, get your stuff done. But then when it's time to just relax and chill, you're able to do that. And Blue Vervain assists with that. It kind of sounds like you had a similar sentiment for Blue Vervain. So,
absolutely. And be calm while you're doing the to-do list.
Exactly.
Right.
It's funny. You mentioned, working and then turning your brain off. As an entrepreneur, it's difficult to do. And just this morning, maybe at like 7:30, Amanda and I were having tea, and I started to say something related to work because she's co-owner of the business too. And I just caught myself. I was like, nope, I'm going to save that one for later. So maybe Blue Vervain is having its effect on me.
Nice. Yeah, getting especially when you work with your spouse, that can get tricky sometimes, where it's like, okay, we need to put a little box around work-related conversations, have it there and leave it there.
Big time. Well, it's the time of year. Y'all are doing the Vitalist Herbal Practitioner program, so related to a lot of the stuff we're talking about. Do you want to tell the audience about the program along with the free mini course that you got going on as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently we are in the middle of our Vitalist Herbalism mini course, which is a 3-part free workshop series, going into a lot more depth on, touching on a few things that we talked about today, but in significantly more depth, and some of the practical ways that the Vitalist approach can influence your approach and mindset, but more importantly, practice of herbal medicine. So it's a 3-part series. We go into how to do great client intakes and working with people, to how to understand plants holistically and herbal energetics and formulation, to really the fundamentals of the difference between an allopathic and a vitalist approach. So there's a lot of really great materials in there. We've got some great handouts in there that you can really use. This isn't just kind of skimming the surface, or really, in all that we do, I really strive to give good quality content for free, because I believe herbal medicine should be made available to people that want to learn more about it. The Vitalist Herbalism mini course is a really great free resource that we offer to the herbal community. Of course, if people want to go deeper, we have the full Vitalist Herbal Practitioner program, which is a paid program. And this is a program I'm really proud of. It is a very deep dive approach to how to work with people and plants, basically. It's our more clinically oriented program. And the overarching structure of it is going through the different organ systems of the body, going in depth on anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, pathophysiology, tissue state energetics, into the primary categories of herbal medicines that we use to address the most common symptoms, complaints, diseases that you will find in those organ systems. So we're going through, it's not just use this herb for that, but it's really like giving you the strategic way of thinking about the person and how to match the herb to the person. Because as herbalists, we treat people, we don't treat disease. And so it's a lot of mindset, but it's very, very, very practically oriented too. Learn lots of different herbs, formulation strategies. We go into a lot of depth on the client to practitioner relationship and how to navigate that, how to do really quality intakes and interviews and other holistic evaluation methods such as pulse evaluation, tongue assessment. We even go into some medical astrology, how to put together strategic herbal formulas and compounds. It is a very in-depth program that is designed to equip you with what you need to know in order to get out there and start helping your family, your friends, your community, or for those that have the calling to, establish more of, a clinical practice and see people day in and day out. The Vitalist Herbal Practitioner program is designed to give you what you need to just get out there and start helping people with herbal medicine.
Well, the Vitalist Herbal mini course itself is around, I want to say, 3 hours of content. And, last year I was poking around inside and watching some of the videos, and I was like, holy shit, I can't believe how much Sajah Popham, packs into just 1 hour of content. And there really is so many practical takeaways. And I did have someone just reach out to me recently and say, I can't thank Sajah and the School of Evolutionary Herbalism enough for offering this for free because, they had a lack of resources. And so they were just very appreciative of that free content. And like you said, if you want to take it even further, signing up for the Vitalist Herbal Practitioner program, I've never calculated the amount of hours inside of that program, but I have to imagine it's a lot more than 3.
Yeah, it's a lot. I believe it's over 150 hours.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of content. Yeah, there's a lot there. Yeah.
Man, that's an accomplishment.
It was really like I wanted to go in depth, and really, ultimately, the courses that I create through the School of Evolutionary Herbalism, maybe it's selfish because I basically create the courses that I really wanted to take but didn't exist. You know what I mean? Like it was totally. Like, man, I really wish someone had a program that was like this, and they taught this, and they taught that, and they taught that, and they strung it all together, and I could never find it. And so I just sat down and created it, And so cool. A lot of it was, in a way, for myself first, of just taking all this stuff that I had learned from my teachers, but also through my experience, both in the forests and fields and mountains, in the pharmacy and lab, as well as in the clinic, and just pooling all of that and like, okay, let's organize this, let's framework it, let's structure it, let's lay it out in a logical pathway that will get you from point A to point B to point C, and ultimately get you to whatever that goal is of being able to help people with herbal medicine and whatever that looks like. And so for me, that's what all my courses are. They're really the ones that I wanted to take myself that I couldn't really find anywhere.
That seems to be a lot of herbal entrepreneurs, or entrepreneurs in general, I suppose, as they're creating the thing they wish existed in the world. That's certainly what HerbRally is. I was like, there's no websites out there showing all of the different herbalism events happening. So I was like, I guess I'll just have to do it myself.
Great, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I did want to say to the listener, this course, the episode is going to be released on September 12th, which is when the Vitalist Herbal Practitioner program's live. It's available for a week. Along with during that time frame, you'll also be able to still sign up for the free mini course as well. All links will be in the podcast show notes, and just full disclosure that they are affiliate links, which means Sajah, Whitney, and the School of Evolutionary Herbalism does generously, kick back some funds to HerbRally for promoting it, but we wouldn't promote things again if we didn't believe in them. So thanks, Sajah and Whitney, for helping support HerbRally.
Oh man, it's our pleasure. Thank you for helping spread the word of what we're doing out there. I think this is what it's all about: is helping each other, uplifting one another, supporting one another. I think this is how healthy ecosystems function, and I think this is how a healthy model can exist as well in the work that we're doing. And yeah, I just want to say thank you for inviting me onto the show. I had a blast chatting with you today. I feel like there's all sorts of different interesting conversations that could be had here on HerbRally. So I'd love to come back and chat with you more, Mason. I've always really appreciated all the work that you do, and just your character, who you are. And I feel like every time we bumped into each other at events, we've always sat down and always had really good talks and heart to hearts, and just like a good connection. So I appreciate it. Yeah,
absolutely, man. I really appreciate all those words. And my favorite place to run into you was at the Sequential gas station in Eugene.
We did bump into each other sequentially. That was always like my go-to stopping point for when I'd be driving from Washington back to our place outside Ashland.
That's right.
I hadn't been there a really long time, but I was like, yeah, I like that gas station with like the green roof, and they got good sandwiches and coffee.
That's right. Yeah, as a young hippie, it was always my dream that there would be a mini mart dedicated to some like a gas station that had like natural foods and whatnot. Sequential filled that void. So shout out to them. This is not a sponsored podcast by Sequential, but yeah, Sajah, really appreciate you joining us on the show. Look forward to having you on again. Yeah, because like you said, there's lots we could talk about, but that's going to do it for this episode of the Herbalist Hour. The Herbalist Hour. We'll catch you on the next episode. Bye, everybody. Thanks so much for watching today's episode of the Herbalist Hour. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want more great herbal content, be sure to subscribe to our HerbRally YouTube channel. If you enjoy these Herbalist Hour episodes and you'd like to join us live, you can do so by becoming an HerbRally Schoolhouse member. Learn more at herbrally.com/schoolhouse. And if you want to get your first 30 days for free, use coupon code YouTube30 at checkout. So our HerbRally Schoolhouse members get access to exclusive video classes, monographs, and a lot more herbal community discounts, along with joining these live Herbalist Hour interviews. So one more time, herbrally.com/schoolhouse. Enter coupon code YouTube30 at checkout to get your first 30 days for free. All right, we'll see you in the next episode, and take care.